All right, this is on and popping, Seb.
Right, all right.
Yes. Hold on one second. Let's just let some people in. Let's just let some folks get in. All right, this is how are you feeling today?
I'm good. School day, dealing with students.
Yes,
Uh,
I see the classroom in the
yeah,
background. I see all the posters.
right. Yep, yep. This is on this side, this is a signed public enemy flag.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't get it signed, but uh, shout out to the homie last man who blessed the class with it. It's signed by Chuck and Flav and I can't see who else is, but it's definitely Chuck and Flav on there.
Okay. I love that. I remember when I was set up my classroom, it's so important for students to see, these representations, right, of our community. And so I see you got Nas, you got Run DMC. Who's
DMC.
behind you? I can't see. Yeah.
So it takes a nation album cover.
Mm-hmm.
And then right here, it's a bunch of people. Uh, just a bunch of different people from KRS to Slick Rick, Lauren Hill, Rakim. It's just a bunch of faces. Yeah, yeah. And then there's more around the classroom. I don't want to take the computer, but there's more stuff around the classroom.
I love it. Well, I see some people are in YouTube. I think we should just get it started, because I know you have so much to share. I want to first begin by welcoming everybody. And yes, this is the H2E2, which means Hip Hop Education and Equity Initiative that is out of California's Department of Education's Arts, Media, and Entertainment Division under the Career Technical Education sector. It is so
It's a
wordy.
mouthful, right? I know,
Yeah,
right? When I
yeah,
try to tell people, I'm like, they're gonna tune out before I'm done.
right, right. Well, this is the first initiative of its kind. You are the co-founder alongside me, Allison Frenzel, who reps the DOE, and Rahman Jamal from Hip Hop Congress. We started this, was it 3, 4 years ago?
It was in 2019, I believe we started have at the very end of 2019, right? Is when we started having those the conversations we started developing. I'll always remember because COVID hit right after that.
Right after, right? We met in February 2020 and then boom, got shut down.
Yeah, yeah, we had that big meeting 2020. I
Yes.
was sick as a dog, didn't know what I had because they
You
didn't
probably
call it
had the
COVID yet.
corona.
Right? Yep.
Yes. And then I went to New York and had a archiving and preservation symposium, and I remember Ben Ortiz was like bump 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 bump, we couldn't touch anything.
Right.
But so yes, 4 years ago this initiative was started, and since then so many grants have been um given to at least now about almost a dozen schools in California have received a grant to use for hip hop education, whether they want to change their curriculum, bring speakers, teaching artists, speakers or equipment, right? Guest speakers, to travel, field trips, to do professional development. They could do whatever they want with that grant. And the goal is to get more teachers to integrate hip hop into the classroom. And I think we have some amazing grantees, and I can't wait for us to really showcase them. But you really started the cohort because as a grantee, you have been teaching this class, and it was the foundation for our professional development. You're gonna get into it in a second. I just want to acknowledge, oh my God, Emily's in the house. What's up,
Yeah.
girl? Can't wait to
Peace,
read your
peace,
book. Yes,
peace. That's right. That's right. I'm glad you joined us.
yes, yes. I also want to just give a quick shout out to our partner. Without Hip Hop for Change and Marlon Richardson, we wouldn't be able to have the speaker series. We're also working on a research project because 4 years into this grant, initiative, we want to know how it's making an impact in young people's lives, in the community. And so shout out to Hip Hop for Change for being our presenting partner. And so without further ado, I'm just going to pass the mic to you because Seb, you're the best person to really talk about your history. Um, I've been working with you. You're my hermano, and I'm just,
Right.
he's just dope. Just listen to him. He's got it. But please break it down. Give us a little background history. I had to capture some of it in the in
Right.
the post because a lot of people don't understand. Like, you're an immigrant, pretty much, and I'm, first gen, and so I love to hear that story, and so please get into it and take it away. And then afterwards, we're going to have Q&A. I know we have some of the grantees in the building, in the Zooming. And so we'll have a talk back afterwards.
Sure. And
But
if you got any questions, if you want to throw any questions in the middle of the conversation, just throw them out. I mean, I'm a teacher, so I'm used to, like I'm used to the interaction,
faster, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, what I'll do is I'll pay attention to YouTube and I'll drop some
Sure.
questions in the chat.
Cool,
But
cool, cool. Cool.
take it
Okay.
away.
So, little background information about me. I was born in France, 1972. Um, and I moved to the United States, Cali more specifically, Southern California, in 81. And at that point is when hip hop got me, right? Because I started breakdancing. The apartment complex that I lived in, if you've lived in an apartment complex before, just bunch of apartments. There's play areas for kids, makeshift play areas for kids, et cetera, et cetera. So you gotta interact with the kids that are in the apartment complex, and lots of kids were breakdancing, and I just kind of got into it just like that. When you're a little kid, I was 9, 10 years old at the time, so you kind of do whatever you see other people doing, something that resonates with you, something that you know is going to kind of bring you into what people are doing, was hot at the time, was popping at the time, right? Uh, so that's how the hip hop bug first got a hold of me, right? Um, and again, this is Southern California, early 80s. Um, I actually ended up going back to France, back to Paris more specifically in 1983 due to some, family issues. Uh, and lo and behold, Paris actually was starting to have a vibrant hip hop community, really in development. So if you were in the know, right, if you were plugged into the culture, it was very vibrant. For the outsiders, it was just this thing, no different than what people felt in the U.S. when hip hop was first starting to, make a global impact or a national impact, I should say. Kind of shunning it, pushing it away, wondering what it's all about, attaching all the stereotypes that you can think of. Kind of the same thing in France. But but as far as I was concerned, it was just really, really vibrant. Um, More so than what I experienced living in Southern California. Maybe because Paris is a big city, and if you've been to the city before, then you know the energy is it's different, right? Um, I always kind of imagined that Paris was like you know a different version, an alternative version of New York City. So I didn't grow up in New York City when hip hop was born and developing, but I got to experience the development of hip hop in Paris. So that was pretty dope. Uh, and In 1984, Paris or France had the first televised hip hop culture show, right? So this is actually a TV show that was hosted by Sydney, who was a Zulu king at the time. Uh, and the TV show focused on all the elements, right? It was almost televised in segments. So you had the b-boying segment, you had the MC segment, you had the DJ segment, you had the graph segment, and at the end of the show, you have performances. So I remember seeing the Disco 3 before they became the Fat Boys, the Force MCs. Uh, Strangely, Madonna performed on that show as well. Um, the Zulu Nation was a strong presence on that show. And at that point, I wanted to be a member of the Zulu Nation. And, this is pre-internet. So at the end of the TV show, they always had this address. You can, send in your request or any interest that you have in being featured on the show as a B-boy. And I just wanted to be part of the Zulu Nation. So I wrote my letter, and I was too young, so I wasn't rejected. They just responded that I was too young. Um, but I tried my hand at DJing on my grandmother's turntable, which was not made to scratch on, but I did. I tried. Um, Graffiti, I ended up just imagining that I was, you know, out in the streets because I was too young to go out and hit the walls, right? So I just did everything on paper. Um, and Then I returned to the United States. And in 1985 is when I really got into MCing and beatboxing specifically, right? And through high school, I kind of decided that, hip hop was my thing, right? That was going to be what I was going to focus on for the rest of my life. I went to high school from 86 to 90. So anyone who's in that age range can kind of gauge where how the culture was perceived at the time. And so I became a beatbox battler. I was battling everybody, right? Damn good at it too, if I may say so myself. Um, I was rhyming too, but I guess I was a little more reluctant to showcase my skills as an MC. So I did a lot of writing, and it got to a point where 1987, yeah, around 87, we formed a group, some of my partners, and I ended up writing a lot of their rhymes. And eventually, I just got more comfortable rapping as well. So I guess at that point, I was just exemplifying all the elements because I was trying my hand at DJing as well. So I was just really out there making a local name for myself as a MC, beatboxer, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I was not a good student. So the irony that I'm a teacher now, actually sitting in this classroom, in my classroom, right? It's uh it's a trip. It's really, really a trip. But I was not a good student because my mind was on hip hop. That's all my mind was on. I had no other interests but being an MC, being a hip hopper, just living the culture. However, I was an avid reader, right? I spent a lot of time reading books on history, metaphysics, right? Thanks to my mom early on, who had a pretty a vast library of books on metaphysics and the supernatural. So I had an early interest in that, and that interest was rekindled through hip hop. Especially, I listened to KRS and MCs like that. So reader. So I combined my love for science and current events and social issues and politics and history with hip hop, and I was able to channel what I was passionate about through hip hop. In high school, I launched a few different clubs that never really took off, right? But my interest was always to use hip hop as a way to reach people. I remember me and my boys, we launched this club that we got approval to actually facilitate during lunchtime. And we were really excited about it, right? Like, oh man, we're gonna get to talk about hip hop. We're gonna gather all the hip hop heads at school, and no one showed up but my crew, right? So that was kind of sad, but just a testament to how my mind was already tuned into using hip hop as education, empowerment, even as a high school student. Um, so after high school, which again I did really poorly in, um, I transitioned right into following my goal, my dream, being an MC, being a producer, um, and that's pretty much what I did for a while until I started becoming a freelance writer. Me and my partner, we started a publication in 1993 called Underground Revolution, which we eventually changed the name to Do the Knowledge. Um, so that kind of launched my career as a writer because we were fortunate to interview uh, everybody that was popping at that time. So Wu-Tang had just dropped. So we got to interview them. We got to interview people like Master Ace, Redman. I mean, I Ultramagnetic. I mean, the list goes on. Um, Stetsasonic. So I still got those old videos. I still got the little micro cassettes from all the interviews we did. Rakim. Uh, so bunch of people. So we really kind of took it upon ourselves to use all of our means, limited means, because we didn't really have too much money, to establish ourselves as a source for hip hop within our local community. Um, so to make a what can be a long story a little shorter, um, I continued in the music industry. I was able to work for a few record companies, continuing my freelance work. Um, and I was producing for up and coming MCs, still pursuing my passion as an MC as well. Uh, but I was really pulled, right? Because while I was interested in being an MC and getting myself out there, I almost got a record contract in 1994. Um, I was really passionate about working behind the scenes because I wanted to use my experience, my passion for hip hop and mostly conscious hip hop. I wanted to be a conduit or a bridge to facilitate the promotion and the marketing of hip hop with a message, right? So my whole master plan was if I work for this record company, if I do this, if I do that, et cetera, then I can leverage my passion as a hip hop head and bring in hip hop that matters, hip hop with a message. And it was really, 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 really difficult, as you guys probably know, because the industry doesn't necessarily lend itself to promoting hip hop with a message. On the underground, yes, of course, we've had some successful and notable conscious hip hop artists, through the last few decades. But I wanted to see a revolution of it, similar to the golden age of hip hop, similar to the level that a Public Enemy achieved. I just wanted to see more of it. So I got disillusioned. At the same time, I got married, uh, had a child, and at that point, kind of had to make a decision. I had worn so many different hats. Some things I haven't even discussed here because I want to make the story a little shorter. But at some point, I just decided that I need to do something else. that isn't as shaky, is more stable. Maybe it's time to venture out somewhere else. And I got into social services, completely different, but not so different because social services was still very much a part of my passion, connecting with the community, connecting with the youth, empowering people, right? It was just a different way to do it. So I got into social services, became a case manager for at-risk youth. And what's really interesting is even as a case manager, I used hip hop to connect with what we call them clients, but the kids that I was working with. So much so, my work with hip hop as a case manager was so evident to the people I worked with that I actually got a Employee of the Quarter award for using hip hop with my clients. And it's interesting because it actually said that on the award, which I'm pretty sure was the first time that they had to print a different award that says hip hop on it. So so, I always carried that with me wherever I went. Um, I still had one foot in the music industry as a freelancer, working independently. And again, as I'm listening to myself share this story right now, I realize how many things I've left out. But I want to get to the point, which is hip hop education. Um, so um, while I was a social worker, I got really disillusioned with the way the music industry was heading. It wasn't new. I felt that way even in high school, but I just hit a moment where I thought to myself, I got to do something. I got to do something that is going to hopefully change the direction that that hip hop is going in, but more so trying to approach it from the perspective of how kids are responding to it, right? So uh, me and my partner started an organization which essentially led up to creating a hip hop curriculum. At that time, it was based on individual workshops. So we would go to different schools, different high schools, different programs, after school programs, pretty much whoever would have us, and we would do hip hop workshops for their students, for the kids they serviced. Again, whatever organization it was, we were there to talk about hip hop, but always from a conscious perspective, always from the perspective of exploring the intersection of hip hop culture and current events and history and race, et cetera, right? So it wasn't just to teach kids about, the four elements necessarily, or who the founders of the culture are. That's cool too. That's important too. But there was always the need was to connect hip hop culture to a cause, a reason, a social movement that will allow students to see themselves as part of the answer to whatever the problems may be in society, right? So we have pretty big goals. Um, we did that for a while, and for about 5 years, panel discussions, lectures, UCLA, USC, et cetera, just really made a name for ourselves. One day I was facilitating a workshop at this high school, and one of the attendants came up to me after the workshops, and she said she was really impressed, and she wanted to introduce me to Donda West, Kanye's mom. Um, Her and Kanye were starting a program, a high school-based program, and she wanted to introduce me to Mrs. West because she thought there could be some synergy there. So I met Mrs. West, and they brought me in to design a curriculum, a hip hop curriculum for the program, which was called the Loop Dreams. It was called Loop Dreams through the Kanye West Foundation. This was in 2006. So long story short, they hired me to design the curriculum, and then they realized, well, we can just hire you to teach it as well. So they ended up hiring me, and I became a classroom teacher, like literally overnight, right? With no experience formally, right? But plenty of experience doing workshops for the 5 years prior. So I was super comfortable in a classroom, right? But I didn't have a teaching credential. So they brought me in and they had a partnership with a K through 12 charter school in LA. And essentially, I became a full-time hip hop teacher at that school. And the way they would allow me to teach was to have a teacher of record, meaning another teacher in the classroom who is essentially the teacher on a record, but I was the one teaching the lesson. Um, and after a couple of months, they kind of gave me the class, let me teach the class by myself. Uh, Probably not legal at all, but it happened. And there I was, Monday through Friday, right? 8 to whatever, 3:30 p.m. Just became a regular teacher. And for me, although I was teaching this program that I had designed for Kanye's foundation, I was really just teaching what I had been doing for the last 5 years, just consolidating all of these workshops into a year-long curriculum. So it wasn't anything I had to design from scratch. I already had a bunch of different individual workshops, right? And I designed all of my worksheets, all of the resources that I used. YouTube was still relatively new at the time, but I depended on YouTube a whole lot. I was able to leverage some of my friendships in the industry. So I had some pretty dope speakers come and speak to the students. MC Light came through. If you're from LA, from the West Coast, you might know Medusa came through. KRS came through. And it was just a really, really cool experience. And after that first semester, I won't get into the details, but Kanye did what Kanye is now known to do, and he pulled a Kanye, for a lack of better word. He pulled a Kanye, and he decided to end his partnership with the school, like literally overnight. Right, the school didn't even know that Kanye was pulling out of the partnership. Through a series of weird circumstances, I'm the one who essentially informed the administration that Kanye was leaving. They didn't even know. I thought everybody was in on it, but the school didn't know. So the school gave me a choice. You can continue working with Kanye, or you can work for us. So I chose to work for the school. So now I was on my own, but I was teaching my curriculum, right? Uh, the school was gracious enough, although it's again, it's definitely not allowed, but they allowed me to teach for 2 more years without a credential, right? And then they said, you got to get a credential. We can't do this any longer. You got to get a credential. That's when my wife told me about the CTE, right? A quicker way to become a credentialed teacher. So I got my CTE in 2009, I believe, or 2008. So I was credentialed, and I was allowed to teach. And that pretty much set off my journey as an educator. And the class that I teach now is called Global Awareness Through Hip Hop Culture. And that class is essentially the curriculum that I've been designing since it was taught as a series of workshops and as a full-time program. So I've been a hip hop educator since 2001, if you count the workshops, and since 2006, if you count full-time teaching, Monday through Friday, basically. Um, in my experience as a hip hop educator, you can imagine since 2006, it's been lots of ups and downs, lots of ups and downs. I would say I can write a book, but I am writing a book. So the story will be told in book form eventually. But so in those years, I've seen how kids have evolved, developed the same way, in the same path, in the same trajectory that hip hop has evolved or gone through its ups and downs or the roller coaster that hip hop has been going through, right? And of course, when we're talking about hip hop, we also have to talk about the mainstream impact that it's had on our students. So it's been a real interesting journey. What I want to do now, I don't want to get too much into what happened between 2006 and in 07, 08. I kind of want to bring it to the present. I've been teaching at View Park High School going on 10 years now. I'm literally in my classroom right now. This has been the same classroom for 10 years. And I also teach beat making, which is the technical portion of this pathway. So the students take the foundational course called Global Awareness Through Hip Hop Culture, and they move through intro to beat making and then advanced beat making. I also teach a life skills class that isn't connected to this pathway, but I also have a passion for teaching life skills. So that's something that I pitched to the school, and they were open to it. So the pathway is 3 classes, and it's a digital music production pathway under arts, media, and entertainment for the career technical education program. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Let's see. Right, and hopefully, can somebody give me a thumbs up to confirm? Okay, cool. Perfect. All right, excellent. So let's get into it right here, right here, right here. All right, so what is global awareness through hip hop culture? Let's break it down. So, global awareness through hip hop culture introduces students to hip hop culture's rich history as a culturally relevant medium to explore career pathways in arts, media, and entertainment while becoming socially aware, media literate artists, content creators, and global citizens. Through the lens of hip hop culture, students are able to express themselves in a space that respects and affirms their identities, cultures, and interests through rap, beat making, creative writing, and a variety of other forms of expression. Currently, global awareness through hip hop culture provides context for beginners digital music production and advanced digital music production. And it is a foundational course that can be used to inform and prepare students for a variety of AME pathways, right? So global awareness through hip hop culture doesn't necessarily have to be the foundational course for music production. It can be the foundational course for any other medium that has an emphasis on hip hop. So it could be film, it could be photography, it could be dance, it could be all different forms of media. We here on this campus, we have a graphic arts teacher, we have a film teacher, we have a theater teacher. So all of these classes can be taught through the lens of hip hop culture, with global awareness being that foundational course, since a CTE pathway requires a certain sequence of classes. So you need a foundational course, you need what's called a concentrator course, and you need the capstone course, right? So those 3 classes constitute what we call a pathway. Now, of course, when I created global awareness through hip hop culture, I didn't know anything about CTE, right? I just created the class that I wish I would have had when I was a high school student. Of course, that would have never happened because from 86 to 90, having a hip hop culture class was not even, it was inconceivable. So essentially, I created the class that I wanted. So here's a little bit of live in action, right? Full class of students, same classroom that I currently have now, right? Uh, the interesting thing about my classes is really, really rich in conversation, right? Students want to talk. Students want to talk about their lives. Students want to talk about the world. Students they want a space to be able to express themselves, right? And what better way for students to express themselves through hip hop culture, whether it's through discussion or some of the projects that we do. Um, Moving on. So this is the digital music production pathway. I'm sorry, the digital music production class. This is the beginners class. This picture is a little older, so we've stepped up our equipment. If anybody knows anything about music production, this is the Machine Micro. It's an older version. We've updated our technology since. So in the music production class, the beginners class, obviously they learn the foundation of beat making. They get an introduction to sampling, and they work on a variety of projects throughout the year. The advanced music production class, that class is made up of students from the beginners class, obviously, who have an interest in pursuing music more seriously, and the advanced class gives them a chance to apply everything they've learned in the intro class. And in the advanced class, they have to create an album. So they have the entire school year to work on an album. In between time, we have field trips, we have different lessons. I give my students different challenges, different themes that they could create songs around. But the ultimate goal, the capstone, which is what a CTE pathway is supposed to produce, right? It's supposed to produce that culminating project. So for us, it's an album. And I pretty much give students the freedom to make an album that represents whatever it is they want it to be, right? Now, of course, the focus is hip hop because the foundational course is global awareness through hip hop culture, but it doesn't have to be hip hop. It can be whatever the kids want it to be. It can be instrumental. It could be all instrumentals. It can be vocals included. That's completely up to them. So moving on to the next phase, we have a booth in the classroom, right? So students can actually do vocals in the classroom. A few years ago, I was the principal at the time, surprised me with this, what you see right here on your screen, this booth and the soundproof booth and everything else that comes with it. I got a phone call over the summer. They said, "Here, you need to come to your classroom. We got a little gift for you." And I had no clue, no clue. I walked into my classroom and I saw this built in the classroom. They did it over the summer. They built it in the classroom. I had no idea. So you could imagine how wild it is to have this in a classroom. Um, Number one class on campus, of course, everybody wants to be in the class. Or let me rephrase that. Everybody wanted to be in the class at that time. We'll talk about why I'm using past tense. We'll talk about that in a little while. But so an incredible opportunity for students to pretty much record an entire project, right? I mean, where else can students have studio time for free? Sure, students can record, anybody can record and make an album from home now. But, when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, you get to go in the booth and take a picture, put it on Instagram, TikTok, so you can, flex in front of your friends. That's a good feeling, right? So there's a lot of that going on too, but I get it. I'd probably do the same thing if I was a 16-year-old with access to social media. So I've had some students do some really, 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 really dope stuff, right? Some really incredible projects. Some students have gone on to pursue music professionally. Some students have even put out or released albums independently that were recorded in the classroom. So, so it's really been an incredible opportunity for students to leverage what they have at school and turn it into a lifelong passion. All right, so here's an example. Student in the booth. You can see the LED lights, right? Just gives it that feeling because the kids they love a vibe, right? The kids love the vibe. So they definitely get a vibe when they sit in the booth. Uh, Before the pandemic hit, we started doing some podcasting. So this is the students who were recording their, I think this was their second or third episode. And I let the students produce it, host it, et cetera, et cetera. And then the pandemic hit, everything shut down. This studio is not in the classroom. We actually went to a commercial facility to record the podcast. And when the pandemic hit, we pretty much had to stop. But we were really on a roll. And what was really cool about the podcast is that the CEO of my school, View Park, is part of a cluster of schools under the banner of ISEF. So ISEF is a charter school system, and the CEO of ISEF was really supportive. He actually promoted the podcast by sending it through email, the link through to parents and the entire ISEF community. So it was really, really cool to have that level of support. Field trips. So we've gone on a lot of really, really dope field trips. This is a trip that we took to the Paramore house, which is a really eclectic mansion in LA. And the mansion is rented out for a bunch of different events. In this particular case, we went to an event that was hosted by Childish Gambino, and every room in that house had artists working and collaborating on music. So you could pop into a room and see a jam session. You can pop into another room and see a cipher. In this particular case, on this picture, you see one of my students who is being shown the DJ controllers. So it was just an amazing opportunity for students to meet Childish Gambino, to meet other stars, and to get a feel for the organic vibe of music, because everything was really, really, really organic. All right, so I'm sure some of you guys want to know, like, well, what does he teach, right? I mean, it sounds good, hip hop culture, but what do you guys talk about? What do the students learn? So I'm going to go over some of the lessons. It's a very small slice of what we cover in an entire year, because my curriculum is a year-long curriculum, right? From August to June. So, and I'll just jump around. I'm not going to read the whole thing. For example, students will compare and contrast the top Billboard in rap, pop, and R&B to create a chart outlining the differences and similarities in subject matter between given music genres. Another one is students will write a 3-paragraph essay that answers the following question. Should an artist be held accountable for the negative images and messages they glorify, or should they have unfiltered artistic freedom to express themselves however they see fit? Another one would be students will pretend they're famous artists ready to release a new album, and they'll design a poster, billboard, or ad promoting their latest project. So obviously there's again, a wide range of lessons that the students can get involved in, but I make sure that we cover different learning styles, right? So for students who like to write, we got writing, right? For the students who like to rap, we got the second bullet point here. Students will compose a rap or spoken word poem that celebrates their culture, traditions, accomplishments, and rich history. They'll perform it live or record their song in the studio, right? So, so we have, for students who want to draw, we got the poster or the billboard project. So there's just a bunch of different projects that cater to students' individual artistic forms of expression. And earlier, Martha was talking about the original cohort. So this is a picture of the first group that was interested in going down the CTE path and essentially learning how to use global awareness through hip hop culture as a way to develop their own curriculum and to become CTE teachers. So some of these folks went on to become teachers. Others are still thinking about it. Unfortunately, when we kicked off the first meeting with the cohort, again, the pandemic hit. So you're going to hear that a lot through this conversation. But so that really slowed everything down. We met in the classroom for our first meeting, and every meeting after that was on Zoom. So it kind of changed the direction and the enthusiasm because we weren't able, or I wasn't able to show the members of the cohort how to teach in real time, right? Everything was on Zoom at that point. So for someone who has a desire to be a teacher and who wants to see what it's like to be a teacher, who wants to come in the classroom and just be a fly on the wall, or get an opportunity to practice their teaching skills with a real group of students, none of that was possible. None of that happened. I gave members of the cohort an opportunity to join us on Zoom, but the vibe was very, very different. And I'm sure you've all heard the stories that Zoom teachers had to deal with 20 to 25 cameras turned off, volumes off, right? So essentially, you're talking to a screen of students who are on the other side playing, PlayStation, sleeping, eating, watching Netflix, right? So to invite somebody who at once had the desire to become a teacher to experience the life of a teacher during the pandemic on Zoom, that was not good. That didn't work out. So like I said, so some of the people went on to become teachers, but it was a difficult pill to swallow for those who were apprehensive and decided that this probably wouldn't be the best way to go. I see there's a question in the chat. Hold on just a second. Oh, okay. 2 minutes before Q&A. Got it. So one more thing I will talk about. Before the pandemic hit, I had an amazing opportunity to turn global awareness through hip hop culture, what we do in the class, into a docuseries. And we actually shot some footage. We were looking at having a 10-episode docuseries with a celebrity guest for every episode who would come and speak to the students. We were going to follow the lives of some of the students who are excelling in music production or songwriting. And again, the pandemic hit and everything pretty much went down the drain. We were fortunate to actually shoot not a pilot, but a 7-minute sample of what the show could have been like. So if anyone's interested, I'll be able to share that YouTube link. We've gotten a lot of media coverage prior to the pandemic, and as long as I've been teaching global awareness through hip hop culture, we've gotten a lot of media coverage, gotten a lot of interest from artists who reached out to be guest speakers. And in the middle of all of this, classroom, hip hop classroom, and hip hop education, I decided to continue or to return to being a freelancer. So, so I set back into the mode of freelance publicist, creative consultant. I worked with KRS. I was his publicist for a short time. So I ended up kind of having one foot back in the business and one foot in the classroom. And the business being what it is, after a while, I just went back into the classroom fully. And that's my story, probably about 5% of the whole thing. But I'm trying to keep things moving. And the rest will be in the book. Whenever I can finish writing the book. I'm on chapter 9, so we're doing okay. Chapter 9 ain't too bad.
Thank you so much, Seb. What? Woo!
That was a lot. I don't think I've spoken this long uninterrupted in a long time.
No, you did great. You did great. Now just take the
Oh,
presentation
that's
down.
right.
Yeah. So we could welcome some of the grantees who are in the Zoom with us. Um,
You know, I'm in the classroom right now, right? When it's after hours. So they
yes,
turned the AC off a long time ago.
yes. Oh, I
So
see Ife is in YouTube as well, sending you much love.
much
Yes.
love, much love.
Yes, yes. So we only have a few minutes for Q&A, and that's why I had to like jump in
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah,
really
absolutely.
want to ask you some questions, but I'm gonna turn it over to Mark Bayangos, so he can get it started. Do you have a question, Mark?
Yeah, I said like there's like a natural like evolution with you trying to be in the classroom first and then like the public service aspect for it.
Mhm.
And I think leveraging just the whole like community service aspect is really important because some of this work we don't realize counts as like CTE like hours. And I think some of these people that like do the work already don't realize they could be an educator. Is there a way like for someone in the intersection that's like teaching, that's like a practitioner that's from the scene,
Mhm.
but that's also like realizing that they're doing this work. They want to be a teacher. They don't know like what they're doing. Like, what would you recommend in terms of like that transition, either from the community service side or the hip hop
Right,
side?
right. I would say before committing to pursuing a CTE credential, um, I think it would be wise to have some experience teaching, practice experience teaching, whether it's as a guest speaker, whether it's volunteering somewhere, whether it's reaching out to me and asking me if they can just kind of, again, be a fly on the wall and see what it's like. I really, really, really think it's super important for somebody to really test it out first, right? Because it might seem really cool, right, to a hip hop head, like, yo, I'm an MC, I'm a B-boy, I'm a writer, whatever the case may be, I'm a DJ, and man, the kids are gonna love it, right? And I'm gonna get in the classroom and they're gonna love it. Well, guess what? The kids who are 14, 15, 16, 17, they don't have the same relationship with hip hop that we have, right? So we see hip hop as hip hop education is kind of still inconceivable because we come from a time when that didn't exist. So the fact that we're doing it, it's mind-boggling. Well, when you're 14 years old, it's not mind-boggling, right? It's a cool class, right? For some students, it's a very cool class. I'm not playing it down, right? But when you're a hip hop head, a practitioner who wants to become a teacher, you become a teacher first. And a practitioner or a hip hop head who teaches, that's secondary, right? You're grading homework, you're designing curriculum, you're meeting with parents, you're dealing with discipline, right? You're going to parent teacher conferences, you have staff meetings that have nothing to do with hip hop, right? Being a teacher doesn't really have anything to do with hip hop, right? From day to day. The content that you teach does, right? But it's not this magical, and Mark, maybe you can speak to it as well, right? Because you're in the classroom, so you know exactly what time it is, right? It's not it's work. You're a teacher. That's the bottom line. You are a teacher and you're dealing with all the things that you hear teachers go through. Being a hip hop teacher does not prevent you from just experiencing the same roller coaster and ups and downs that a math teacher and English teacher or anybody else goes through. What do you think, Mark? You're a teacher.
So I echo all that. I think the classroom management hits you right away, in terms of being in the classroom. Like you conceive that like, oh, the kids are gonna love it. And you realize like the kind of hip hop that you grew up with is like generations away from them. It's like 80s or 90s kids learning about the 60s or something like
Oh,
that.
yep.
And the classroom management, because the CTE and you're kind of like thrown in there. You kind of got to figure it out versus someone that gets like a math credential. But I wouldn't discount anyone's experience with the craft, with the art, with the culture. Just know you'll have to grow and be relevant with the kids and their ideas, and it's always evolving. These kids are real quick. Um, and got to kind of tap into whatever it is, 2024 and above.
Yeah, if you're a boom bap head, you're gonna might be dealing with trap and drill all day.
Right. No, no, that's true. And I would add that, um, there are now jobs where you can come in and be a guest teaching artist, have a residency, right? Just to try it out, have a residency. And what we can do with this grant, the H2E2 grant, is hire someone for like a 6-week residency or longer. And so I think trying it out as a teaching artist is the first step that I think. Um, if you love it, then you go for the credentials. And there's a lot of schools out there that will pay for your credentials. And trust me, there is a cost to becoming a teacher. Not only are you, paying for it literally, but like both of the teachers that you see on screen now, they're still in their classroom.
Yeah.
Way after school ended, grading and on the weekends, doing things for the class. And so it is a big commitment. But there are ways around it. That to test it out. I have a question before we end because we have only a few minutes.
Your classroom.
How were you able to get your class to be an elective?
Mm. So some time ago, some years ago, um, I was fortunate enough to work with some people who have more experience than me in education, who were able to essentially apply for the class to be a UC CSU approved college prep class, which is I don't know if you want to say it legitimizes it or but it's what's required. It's now an approved elective that high school students can take, and it'll be recognized by the UC CSU system as a regular elective. So if students are in my class and they're not pursuing the CTE pathway, right, it still counts as an elective. It still meets, the A through G requirements, right? So every student is not interested in the pathway. Every student isn't going to be part of the three sequences, the three courses, right? Some students might just be in the hip hop culture class, and that fulfills, their elective for that year. Some student might just be in the intro to beat making class, and that fulfills their elective requirements for that year, right? I'll say, I want to say I didn't have much to do with that. That was all done for me, and I'm very thankful for it. And again, there's a lot of things I like to say. There's a lot of things about education that since I didn't go to school for this, right? So there's a bunch of things that on the back end that happened that I think I just got real lucky.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good opportunity for our teachers to, to expand their work, right? Is to make it an elective. And as a matter of fact, it made me think now for those advanced students, do you have like a college prep, or college credit dual enrollment situation? Could that also happen in your class?
It could happen. I haven't really gone in that direction yet. I mean, I've thought about it. But it's just been a thought. I haven't really pursued it just because there's already so much work that goes into what I'm doing right now. I don't want to say I'm I don't want to make it sound like I'm stuck and I can't do anything else, right? But you get really locked in, as a teacher, your routine, your responsibilities, you really, really, really get locked in. Because I'm always thinking about, what's the next lesson? Even though I have decades worth of lesson plans, right? I'm still tweaking everything every week. I'm tweaking. I'm taking my old lessons and updating them. So over the weekend, I'm thinking about, okay, how do I teach this lesson in 2024? How do I bring in this artist that I used as a resource 5 years ago, when that artist was relevant. So my time is really taken up focusing on the now that sometimes, I don't really get a chance to think beyond. So I'm not against it, but I don't even really know how I would go about doing that. That's something that, somebody needs to say, like, hey, Seb, let me bring you in and,
Yeah, well,
help
this
out.
is something we're gonna have to like help the H2E2 and the, grantees, and I think we're gonna have to tap Allison Frenzel, because I bet she knows how to do that. Okay, we have run out of time. Mark, did you have a question? Because I feel like you were gonna say something and I cut.
Oh no, I just typed it in the chat to Sir what he was saying about updating curriculum. I mean, the revisions never stop. Depending on, we have a change of a bell schedule next year, so we're stripping everything. You gotta think about like minutes. We're going from like a 70-minute class to 85 minutes to like a 6 period day to 7 periods. So there's just like structures in place. Things.
That's right. That's right.
So
We're changing schedules too. So I have to like think of like, I used to teach this in,
Mhm.
80 minutes,
Yeah.
now it's 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So, what do I do with that extra 20 minutes? Can I, can I tag that to the next day or, so you're always revising, restructuring. And again, going back to what we discussed earlier, if you're not ready to tackle that, that's that's tough. That's a teacher's job. It's you can be the dopest MC, the dopest DJ, but can you lesson plan?
I mean, it's very hip hop. It's DIY. I mean, you kind of got to think on your toes a bit. There's a lot of improvising, freestyling.
Sure, 100%.
So I think if you got that in you, I mean, it'll be to your advantage. But
That's why we can do it. That's why we do what we do.
I try. I try. I'm still trying to catch up to you, but it's
Man, come on, man. You're good,
ongoing.
man. You got it. You got it.
But
And definitely you have to have that social emotional connection, because sometimes our young people come to class hungry, tired, they just fought with their parents. And so they're coming with some emotional baggage, and you got to also be empathetic to them. It really is a lot of work. I commend you both for your work, and thank you, Seb. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll have you back in a part two, because I really wanted you to give us some more context to your lesson plans, and
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah. I
do
know.
that in the next round.
I spent a lot of time talking about my youth and I needed to to focus on global awareness. So
Okay, thank you.
sure. All right,
And
peace.
thanks to everybody in YouTube, Ife, Emily, and whoever else is there. Thank you so much for joining us. Peace.
Peace.